Hello, my name is Toma Belev. I would like to tell you that I really drew the short straw bar out of all the group of ecologists, zoologists, veterinaries, etc., etc. So perhaps I'm not the best person to present this topic to you. Anyway, I just traded off this my participation with one last slide. Now, this project was implemented by 5 Bulgarian NGOs, 4 Swiss NGOs, and a public administration with the Ministry of Agriculture and Foods. It aims to demonstrate the connection between biodiversity and economic regions by emphasizing on territories having a very high natural value. And there were many applicable and applied solutions there. I will lay the emphasis on the political solutions. First, the establishment of the proper legal mechanisms. Secondly, of course, bringing more profit for the local businesses. Thirdly, thinking strategically about long-term conservation of territories having a high natural value. Fourthly, these 3 policies have to be interconnected. And last but not least at all, raising the awareness of the people who make decisions. Now, what mechanisms did we use? Mechanisms of impact. Well, let me quote a former Prime Minister of Bulgaria. About 100 years ago, he had this philosophy that he was working slowly but surely and with putting some pressure. Developing of assessment plans, participating in working groups, participating in sessions of parliamentary committees, etc., etc. We organized some training, by the way, something that the state does not do very often, exchanging good practices and putting some pressure. Well, the pressure is information campaign and tourist excursions, tourist trips where we just show what the situation is. And of course, also different types of public participation in. We organized different events in the past year. We have accumulated in 5 years quite a lot of negative PR on our activities. Now, I don't know what we misinformed, but anyway, we wanted to further develop activities that we had started developing years ago. Before, activities were targeted at improving the activities of the local farmers in order to make it possible for farmers and family enterprises to be capable of producing more. So there was a local ordinance which was amended with the help of our consortium. There was a project. Things were changed on 3 occasions in order to make them better. And, you really change things when you provide real support. This took place in northern Bulgaria, the northwest and northeast part. These are the poorest areas, actually, the poorest regions in the European Union, across the Union. And perhaps this is why we were so determined to work in this area, because in some of these regions, people don't seem to understand us. We have to speak in a different way in order to understand each other, in order to make it possible for our opinions and ideas to to understand us. We had to translate from Bulgarian into Bulgarian. But anyway, there was another project targeted also at an agricultural area, making it possible for local farmers to raise different domestic animals. We also made it possible for local family farms to work jointly with slaughterhouses. We also supported them in their desire to have more support in different aspects of their activities. There was a program for the development of the rural areas. So this was an impact targeted at the better treatment of animals, in particular those farmers who would raise their animals in the open or in an open courtyard. There was another activity in the rural areas, namely financing projects in order to reduce, so to say, the distance between the farmer and the consumer, and also arranging, so to say, for state aid wherever possible for those farmers who seem to take care of everything by themselves, get some state aid for them, especially on territories having a high natural value. This was under a former operational program, the so-called pastoral measure. It doesn't exist anymore, but before, under the former operational program, it was possible, thanks to the Biodiversity Foundation. The farmers receive subsidies only if they have a very good environmental impact. So we did try different schemes, different patterns, models rather, of sustainable use of resources, including voluntary grant schemes. We also used the compulsory payment schemes. But perhaps another speaker will speak at greater length about them. And there were other topics which we had to respond to. For example, there was another problem which was going to lead, so to say, or to result in the cutting off of trees from about 4,000 hectares along the River Danube. But thanks to our intervention and lobbying, the trees are still there. The same applies to the dunes issue. We were very active in our desire to protect the dunes along the seacoast, the Black Sea coast. We undertook other acts concerning the protection of the Black Sea coast itself, the coastline. We used to have a law on the Black Sea coast which restricted two zones, Zone A and Zone B. But nobody seemed to know where Zone A or Zone B were. Nobody even knew whether such zones existed or areas. So we organized meetings with the then Prime Minister, the then Speaker of the Parliament. So these areas, so to say, are mapped and they are in the landed cadastre, which is also related to the future. We have 16 biospheric preserves. In 20 years' time, the state couldn't, so to say, put enough effort into applying the civil strategy of UNESCO. And, well, within our foundation, we succeeded in organizing 4 projects, implementing 4 projects. So we have implemented them in the Central Balkans and Uzunjak. We also tried to do a protected landscape project basing ourselves on the Spatial Act in a pilot project in one of the municipalities on a protected area, protected landscape, actually. We were very active within the European Environmental Network Natura 2000 in the protected areas in particular. In the past 1.5 to 2 years, the state used to prohibit dredging and trawling too. Well, trawling is prohibited anyway. Currently, it is prohibited. Dredging and trawling are prohibited on the Black Sea coast within the protected area, which is about 30% of the Black Sea space. Unfortunately, there is no institution to implement the prohibition, the ban. And there is another project which would perhaps sound more interesting for the Bulgarian members of this forum. 4 years ago, the state proposed that some important mountain peaks would be privatized. It just offered them for privatization. I'm listing them now. But there were some conditions which involved the potential build-up of those territories. And of course, that would be violation of the law. Some of those territories were part of Natura 2000. So these attempts were thwarted. So if you hear about such a project being abandoned, it's because of our activities. We also have other, of course, we have other projects. For example, there were some plans for urbanization of some areas. We decided to take part in the discussion of the general plans, the plans for urbanization of the different areas. Well, usually these plans are kept hidden, very well hidden. They're not transparent. They're hidden in the office of a public official or a local government official. We tried to break up this practice. Urbanization plans were in an e-form. So if they were only on the computer of the chief architect of a municipality or a town, it was not possible to access it. There were also some activities targeting legal security. For example, implementing in Bulgaria decisions which have been contrary, which are contrary to the law. Environmental impact assessments were not always implemented, and we would interfere wherever we thought that we could. But unfortunately, by the end of the respective appeal of the act, it would sometimes happen that the trees would be cut down. Or sometimes there are decisions which are issued under the Biological Diversity Act and the Environmental Protection Act. There are 14,000 decisions that are issued every year, which means 2.5 decisions per expert a day. I think that this is not really possible. I think that this doesn't really mean high-quality administrative acts or high-quality decisions, because decision-making implies a lot of reasoning and discussion on the spot. Anyway, we decided that our proposals a proposal to obligate municipalities to have such urbanization plans that should be in line with the existing legislation were taken into account. And this is thanks to our partnership with the Executive Agency for Forests. They even introduced a new term, a regional forestry agency. So, in fact, this means that the plans for urbanization would be assessed by the respective forestry agency. Again, something that is the result of the project itself, which that project ended several months ago. We developed a manual on forests, old forests, very old forests, because we wanted these forests to be managed successfully and very effectively. And thanks to the active position of the Executive Agency for Forests, last year we saved and protected 109,000 hectares of old forests. But this is very important because that was an area which was developed, which was actually declared as protected area in 1 century ago. There were different types of ecosystems which were included in this area. Actually, these small areas dispersed on the territory of the country, but they form part of one system of protection or preservation, if you wish. We believe that this is quite a big success. Another thing, compulsory payment for ecosystems amendments. A legal tool was introduced that requires payments for ecosystem services. We hope that within a year we will have a well-mapped indication of at least 3 areas as to what services will be paid. Now, this is the last slide. There are 11 laws, 27 ordinances and statutes, and lots of other political documents. This is the last one. As I said, I'm very proud of it. 30 years ago, when I started working in this area, there was just one law, 45 articles that regulated everything. Now, even the title of the framework, legal framework on environmental protection, well, I can't tell you what the title is, but it contains dozens of thousands of pages. And of course, not everything is hidden in policies alone. We also had the desire to work as an agency that would demonstrate, that would show the impact of policymaking. We are happy that we supported about 204 family farms, including bee producers, sheep farms, different tourist destinations, small services for the consumers, including gem manufacturing, gem production, or whatever. These are small businesses, but it's important because we mapped them on Bulgaria's map, and you can see very clearly which is where. I remember two old women who were jobless, who used to work in a military plant in the region and then remained jobless. So we succeeded in helping them develop such small services. Of course, this is quite beneficial. They produce jams. For the fourth consecutive year, they produce jams very successfully indeed. They are now employing new workers. They have increased their production, these two old ladies. They respect nature and support natural activities. I think that this even supports biodiversity. It's not only sustainable development, it's not only sustainable manufacturing process, but it's also very, very enthusiastic. And it's a very good basis for optimism. Down below, you can see the price that the farmer would sell the milk to another trader. Then, of course, when that intermediary would sell the milk or whatever to somebody else, or to a dairy farm, for example, and further sell it on the market, you see what happens. The price goes up manifold. What happens with the price of that milk? If the farmer himself produces the milk and then processes it in a small dairy farm and then sells it on the market. It's quite a good statistics. This is the number of farms which started doing this entire circle themselves. When we started, there were 46 farms. Now there are 1,812, which is quite a big increase. And this is due to the fact that we succeeded in changing several regulations, or actually secondary acts of law. We also succeeded in putting in place or organizing the putting in place of a DNA lab for the species that are supported by the state. And I think that investments in something material like farms, production, labs, etc., which is more than 1.5 million leva, this is the big investment, and this is what matters. And the non-material investment is investment in people, because people are those who change policies. Starting with children. More than 1,000 children pass through the so-called Children's Natural Academy in Ozana. They know what we work for and how we work in order to achieve our goals. We have many representatives in many public institutions and agencies, and most of them have been trained through the Ozana Environmental Academy, as we call it. It's a school, high school, college. So we try to explain to everyone why it is so useful. It's so useful to see things happening in this favorable way. We used to say in Bulgaria that it's good for the eye to see and for the hand to touch in order to understand whether something is good or not. That's true. So what we did in order to help farmers increase their profit is very important. The most important indexes or elements maybe for us is the assessment that we're given by NGOs in Bulgaria. NGOs in Bulgaria, as you see on this slide, believe that we are amongst the most influential organization. Another graph of experts. Experts of NGOs which have a very high influence. 74% at the top are experts in environmental organization. And these are the people who do have their strongest impact on policy making. And of course, this is trust, the confidence of the Bulgarian citizens in environmental NGOs. This is very important for us, of course. We have been working for a 10th consecutive year to improve the situation in Bulgaria. In NGOs, here you see 64% of approval, teachers 62%, television about 60%, internet about 50%. But unfortunately, those who do influence policies, municipalities, the government and the businesses, have a lower, or well, benefit, so to say, a lower, the lowest level of confidence. Well, this is my slide. I've been trying to follow developments in the NGO sector and in our neighbor's yard, so to say. So I can tell you that this is not the position of the project or of the donor. I think that we've walked back through Turkey, Macedonia, Serbia, Hungary. There is a neo-totalitarian management arising. The civic organizations in these countries do not use public support. So if we want to preserve the dignity of the citizens, this will depend on each and every one of us. Thank you.